Okay, we are all in attendance. Thanks for attending. I will call to order at 4:31 the Van Alstyne City Council meeting, special called meeting for Wednesday, May 20th. Let the record show the agenda was posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, and we have a quorum. Councilman Thomas sends his regrets. He will be unable to join us. Our presentations tonight, item A, or receive a presentation and discuss special financing districts, including municipal management districts. Alex. Flip the button. It's high tech, I know.
Testing.
Got it.
Well, thanks for joining, coming in on a special night for a special called city council meeting. There's two items on the agenda this evening. One is a discussion about MMDs, and the other relates to a proposed development project that you've heard about before that includes an MMD proposal. So trying to couple these two conversations with one another to a certain extent. So these types of discussions and the initial discussion night regarding MMDs dates back to February when Robert Hanna with ZachTax joined us to provide information at a broader level about various special financing districts like PIDs, TERSs, MMDs, MUDs, and that sort of thing. Separate to that, you had a special called joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission in March to talk about specific development proposals that were using these types of special financing districts. And so this evening, we just want to carry both of those discussions items forward and get a little bit more into the weeds on what MMDs are and get more details on how they're structured, how they function, how they work, and various options related to MMDs. And then further discussion a bit more with our proposed development partner, Nick Hayden, with Hayden Family Capital, who will discuss it in a bit more context and in that light, more about his project and how he's proposing to structure his MMD. So fortunate to have Robert Hanna with ZachTax, who will provide some introductory information about MMDs, and then David Ritter and Mark Hauser with Brown and Hoffmeister will give an additional, some additional context about MMDs from a legal perspective. So fortunate to have some resident experts here to provide some information, and then following those presentations, we'll turn it over to Nick to give a little bit of information. So I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Robert, unless anybody else has it, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Thank you, sir. Welcome back, Mr. Hanna. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Mayor. Glad to be here. So I'm just going to you have seen this before, so I won't read it verbatim, but I will say that there are, Chapter 375, Texas Local Government Code authorizes municipal management districts, and there's really mainly two different types of MMDs, and I'm going to spend some time talking about the first type in detail. And then the attorneys, I think, can spend more time talking about the second type because it's more complicated and nuanced. In fact, one of the things I say about the second type is you need to engage a competent economic development attorney if you're going to do this with a developer, and you certainly have done so. But an MMD, I'll call this the simple version, right, of an MMD allows commercial property owners to enhance defined business areas. And so a really great example of this is a downtown district. Some states refer to them as business improvement districts. And what you basically do is the businesses come together and they say, hey, we're going to pay more to have a higher level of service. An MMD can't replace services that you're supposed to provide already. So they can't, if you're not providing police service, and you should be, they can't pay for that. They could provide enhanced service. So if you wanted to do a mounted patrol for downtown, that's something they could do, but they're certainly not going to cover the basic cost of public safety. You can add to, you can't just provide the basic stuff. And so when you look at what this municipal management does and how it works, this graphic is a great way of kind of looking at that. This is a fictional area, Riverview District. It's an MMD. And the businesses really want it to be clean and beautiful, safe and secure. They want to have marketing and branding. And they want to have someone they can go to say, hey, there's this pothole here. You know, there's this trash isn't getting picked up, and so they kind of have an advocate, an ombudsman, so to speak, that they can have access to. And this MMD pays for all these things. The businesses pay for it. They pay more to be able to have this level of service. So the business owner pays their fees. The MMD management district provides these services, and the flowers get watered and the sidewalks are swept, and that clean Americana kind of look that some people are looking for can be provided that way, and the city can still provide the basic services without having to maybe do less in other areas to put more in this area. MMDs can fund all or part of these list of improvements here, this landscaping, the lighting, the banners, the pedestrian sidewalks. You won't need seawalls or marinas, but they can do that. Drainage improvements, pedestrian malls, utility services, these plazas, these park, historic areas, works of art. If you wanted to have a sculpture garden or something like that, MMD could potentially pay for some of those things. Parking facilities, bus terminals, even mass transit systems, as long as they're benefiting the district, right? So you couldn't have the business community pay for a mass transit system that was running people to work in other parts of the community. It had to benefit that MMD. But it's a pretty good tool as long as the business community is wanting to pay for that extra higher level of service. There's this other type of MMD, and this is really what you're here to talk about tonight. And I will say it's neither good nor bad. So this is a judgment neutral discussion. They are a highly effective financing tool. And developers like them for a variety of different reasons. But one of the questions that I feel it's incumbent on me to say and for y'all to ask is, there are a number of numerous and effective districts that the state of Texas has authorized people to fund public improvements for development. Why does a developer need an MMD? What is special about an MMD that gives a developer what they need in this circumstance to do what they have to do? And the answer should be informative for y'all, right? And I'm not suggesting that there's anything nefarious or anything wrongdoing at all, just the opposite. It's just a question that needs to be asked and answered. They are created, there's a TCEQ statute, there's also special legislation that can be done. They can be more expensive than some of the other things, but they do provide some benefits and opportunities from an authority standpoint and a financing instrument standpoint that the other districts don't. And so these are questions that should be asked and answered. Do y'all have any questions at all on kind of the simple version of the MMD or about this particular concept at all?
Does it need to be contiguous? Can you have an MMD that's split between two different geographic areas?
I'm going to defer to the attorney on that, but I would
Okay.
imagine it has to be contiguous, but I don't know for certain.
I believe that's correct. Special district, two non-contiguous areas.
Okay.
This one the ability to have additional land added into as it goes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
An MMD can expand their boundaries. A PID theoretically can too, but the function of doing that is basically washing and repeating everything all over again. So it creates a more cumbersome process to expand a PID boundary. It's not quite as a certainty for the development community as an MMD would be. Thank you all very much.
Well, I may have another, the more I think about it. So how is it financed? Is the city obliged, or does it reduce our ability to borrow money? I'll ask that.
No, and again, it depends on how it's structured, but MMDs can be structured so that the debt's off books, right? It depends on what's being issued. If it's a revenue bond, I think the MMD can issue it on their own. If it's a general obligation bond, I think it does require voter approval and may require y'all's consent for that purpose too. Again, that's a question that the attorneys can answer for certain.
Okay, and how does it get paid back?
It'll be either paid back through an assessment on the land. If it's a revenue bond, for example, paid off for the revenues generated. So if the MMD was providing water and sewer services, and that's not being contemplated in this particular one, but if they were, those utility revenues would pay for the bonds, just like your utility system pays for your revenue bonds. The same concept with an assessment. If assessment's being made on an individual household, it may walk and talk like a duck, but it's not a property tax, it's an assessment. There's a nuanced difference there. But they can also, I think they can also levy ad valorem taxes too, and if they do that, then they'd be paying for it like everybody else.
So it functions similar to a PID and a MUD, is that safe to say? You could do an assessment and you could do ad valorem on top of city tax?
It can do both, yes, yeah,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hauser, welcome back. Yeah. Mr. Ritter, welcome back to you as well, sir.
Nice to be back to Van Alstyne, as always. We have a meeting this early, I might be able to go to Burnt after we're done.
We'll do our best.
Thank you. MMDs are very popular these days. As Mr. Hannah said, they're a vehicle for financing, and in the second model, that's primarily what is happening in our area, which is a method to have an authority or a district inside the city that has assessment authority, taxing authority. They can even do impact fees and several other things. It's almost like a city within a city. It's not an in-city MUD, but it's got some of those qualities. And remember, MUD and MMD are not four-letter words, either one. I've worked on a large one in McKinney. It's a couple thousand acres. The primary reason for the MMD request was to have the ability to assess, and so they could issue debt for enhanced improvements to this area. So one of the questions the council should ask in the negotiation with this developer is, what is the product that you're going to produce? To Mr. Hannah's point, why do you need additional financing capability to do it? And so those are the questions you have in negotiation. If you're going to provide park enhancements, if you're going to provide off-site utilities, if you're going to provide certain, as additional lanes of roadways, of things that the city needs, they might need that extra financing vehicle to do that. But there will be a board, if this is created, that will act on behalf of the citizens of that area. I read some of the materials just briefly. I think they're proposing a MMD to be approved by the TCEQ, and that's the statutory way. We have a legislative session coming up. It also could be done through the legislation. I've worked on both ways, but the consent of the council is required in both, and so the way it would go forward if you wanted to do an MMD would be we would conditionally consent to them forming one while we work on a development agreement. And that development agreement would have all those things that I mentioned. And if it didn't get finalized, that consent would be ineffective. So, I think that's the process the developer has proposed. So that's typically what you do. But I think, and I'll kick it over to David, but there's really a question of the needs for this particular piece of land and the developer's, obligations to build whatever he or she is building. I understand it's residential, and I don't know much about the quality or the quantity or the enhancements to the particular property, but all of those things would be crunched into the numbers as to what they need financially to make it work. And that's really the essence of the second model. I will tell you in the McKinney example, which is just an example, the MMD, that was a slip. The MMD only has assessment authority. And so they can do the assessments on the properties, but not an ad valorem tax. Because an ad valorem tax is basically a tax on your tax. And that might have an effect on image, might have an effect on marketability. These are common, so most people know what they're getting into, but it's two taxes on top of each other. The council would be, in the development agreement, approving how much debt they could issue and the things that they could issue that debt for. And that's kind of the guardrails that are in a typical MMD agreement. I'm going to kick it to David since I'm long-winded.
Yeah, and I guess just to sort of follow up, it used to be that the legislatively created MMDs would come out, and there's a whole chapter of MMDs that vary very much in their composition and everything like that. I believe it was 2023, there were some more changes where you can go to TCEQ and get them sort of created through the process that's contemplated here. So it's a little more direct and just an application of TCEQ with the city's permission, if that's where it goes. I think the city has not seen an MMD before, so this is a first instance of it. And I think one of the crucial questions that you've heard here today is why an MMD? Why would a PID not work? Another question maybe, why is this an MMD stacked with a PID TERS? Is that necessary? And then I think the crucial question is also the MMD's powers can be sort of a large, we can think of it in a 1 to 10 scale. We can think of it as selecting, some from column A, column B. What does that look like in terms of what is the city sort of giving up? Because at maximum, an MMD can be sort of like a city within the city. Initially, the city would appoint one of the directors, but after that, it would sort of run as there's an election, and then it becomes a sort of a special purpose district. It's a subdivision of state, just like the city. And, is it going to have taxation powers? Is it going to have assessment powers? And also, what do those look like stacked on each other? What's sort of the maximum assessment that could come out of here? That's going to help define marketability and everything else. It's certainly I think increasingly used, particularly after 2023, and I think used more in this context than it has been before. It used to be sort of an in-city deal, and now we're seeing this sort of annexation into the city to help fund the infrastructure to support that. So it's definitely a tool in the toolbox, but we just want to make sure that the council has comfort with the process and sort of is able to weigh the pros and cons and everything and make that determination of, is it, it's neither good nor bad, but in this whole range, what does it look like? So the powers of the MMD are probably the most crucial decision to get before council.
Dovetail on that, great. So it's really kind of a laundry list or a checklist of what are those powers do you want to give to the MMD for the purposes they need to build this development. And that'll be part of a financial analysis and also, what other amenities they're going to provide to this particular area. The other thing is the question of taxation, and there'll need to be participation from the residents to even initiate a tax. But the primary questions that would come about would be, what's their balance sheet necessary to build the subdivision or this development, and then how long? And one of the main reasons that cities are now interested more in MMDs is because annexation is not as easy as it used to be for cities to voluntarily, take annexed property in. So you do have the benefit of incorporating this development into your city plan, your zoning, comprehensive plan. All those things will look and feel more the same as Van Alstyne than, for instance, a MUD district or other districts that may not. So, it's a good tool for that, to help the city have annexed property, which then creates an ability for other adjacent properties to annex around it. And so all those things are some of the benefits of an MMD. Again, you have to look at the governance part, and you have to look at the layered tax as well. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's not something that you're familiar with until this question, Ryan?
I do have a few questions, but I was letting you finish.
You gonna wait?
Yeah.
I'll stop.
No, it's all right. What is like the one or two primary differences, advantages, or just biggest differences between a PID TERS model and MMD by itself, and then with the MMD adding a PID TERS inside of the MMD?
I think the market has been a little, the bond market,
Clarify though, it's just MMD TERS. It's either a PID TERS or an MMD. So it's just MMD TERS,
Yeah, yeah.
but still, the difference between going PID TERS versus MMD TERS.
PIDs have not been attractive for the developers these days. They feel like there's too much risk in the city having the final word on when to issue the bonds on a PID debt scenario. And so in an MMD, the agreements typically will allow for the district to go ahead and issue debt that's identified already so that they don't have to come to you as the final say. Now, we can do it both ways, but that's typically what they're doing. To remove that, will we, the city council, issue that PID debt or not? And so the TERS MMD is I'll say more, in their views, safer way to have their debt issued.
Okay, and then, yes,
He agrees.
there's an add-on to that, but yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then my next question would be, because it's annexed into the city, this particular development would function as citizens of Van Alstine. And I'm not saying the people in Mantua are not citizens of Van Alstine, but they don't have voting rights. They can't, vote for city elections or anything. But this particular development, because it's annexed, even though they would have their own board, their own assessment, and, they would operate as a city inside of a city, but they still would function as part of the city of Van Alstine,
That's right.
correct?
That's right. Yeah. They would be able to vote, so they would be both board constituents for those matters, but full citizens of the
Okay. Those are my main
So
questions.
basically on this one, it looks like we're getting 1.4 miles of road. That's the benefit to the city.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the whole proposal, and we'll let the developer, I think they have a full-blown presentation. Yeah.
I might be out of order, maybe we need.
Yeah, let's ask Nick about that on part 2 of the agenda,
Yeah, but again,
as far as the specifics of
if
this
there's
development.
comfort in the model that we're talking about, then you basically begin a more in-depth negotiation. I know Alex and his folks have met with the developer several times, and, they have an outline of what they want to do, but those kinds of things would be discussed,
Is that typical though, for legally, like to do something like this for, not like what you described in McKinney? So it's being used for residential,
No,
basically.
it's residential in McKinney.
Oh, it is.
It's this same type model. It's just a lot bigger, and the developer only needed assessments to cover the infrastructure that they were going to fund. And I believe this developer is looking for other ways to bring money into the developer for reimbursement of those utilities or roads or whatever.
I just wonder how the city really benefits from an MMD versus, a PIT.
Again, it functions the same. They'll be able to issue debt in a PID, but I think they're not as, bless you, they're not, the market's not as friendly for PIDs these days, and I'll let the developer speak to that. But that's what we're hearing from our financial folks.
I believe the PID debt would have to come back before council.
It would.
Where the MMD, their board would be able to make that decision independently.
Well, from a PID, there's a lot of more differences because you have the ability to do ad valorem tax, you have the ability to do impact fees, you have other controls that they could do. If they needed an internal security system or
MMDs have generally a broader scope of reimbursement ability for landscaping within the community and maintenance, just the other things that a PID can't do. And so the MMD just has a little bit broader scope.
I agree. In the development agreement that you would have with the developer, though, you would spell out what they have to do and when they have to do it and how that maintenance is done and the level of quality and all those things that you would sometimes put in a plan development ordinance or some other agreement, you would put in that agreement in an MMD model.
Does the MMD have a shot clock like the PID does, like a 25-year to pay back the bonds? Is
Yes.
it, and then it
All
goes
those
away?
All those things are listed as far as the debt
Is that typical, 25 years?
bands.
Yeah, and to clarify, the debt is that MMD would exist, I think it has generally perpetual existence until it goes.
Until-
But the debt.
Okay.
We can come back after he does his
And it
presentation.
can be interactive, you're welcome to
Yeah.
jump in.
So,
Yeah,
just
yes,
another question. So strictly from a financial point of view, maybe the city doesn't care about PIDs and MMDs. It's strictly between the developer and the future residents who are gonna live there. It's the TERS component that we financially, do I have that right? Because now we're allowing part of the property tax to stay in the
Yeah.
district.
If the deal includes the TERS,
Yes,
then part of the city's tax will go into this development only.
okay.
I believe their ask, at least on the paper, was 35% or,
It's a range at this point.
okay, the range, sorry.
Discussed.
But again, all of those financial questions, and yes, to your point, you would have that control, and you have a TERS board, which would, issue debt if that needed to happen. But the amount of tax at 35%, or whatever the number is,
Yeah.
would become part of the math as to what are the needs of the developer to build this, or this, and this, and this.
Okay. So even though the MMD board may be independent of council, the TERS board is still made up of council? Is that an accurate statement?
It
Regardless
is.
of whether it's a
It
PID or an
is, but
MMD?
you'd be agreeing in this agreement that the TERS was going to fund that much.
Yeah,
So you basically have that decision in place before this agreement became effective.
okay.
You wouldn't be out there waiting, maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 0. They would get that essentially done before we finalize this agreement with them.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to follow.
Anyone else for the moment? Thank you. Yes. Thanks, gentlemen. All right.
Council members, good to see you again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Just a quick overview, right? This property is 237 acres. It's currently in Van Alstyne ETJ. The water CCN right now is South Grayson Sud. Again, after the development agreement, we'll have to work hand in hand with the city to move water CCN over to the city of Van Alstyne. The current sewer CCN is the city of Van Alstyne. We're proposing a development agreement to do an in-city MMD and TERS with the city, of course. We've discussed, planning and zoning has seen, we've discussed generally positive commentary around the conceptual plan that you saw last time of 742 lots with 50s, 60s, and 70s. We would be building 2 lanes of Blythe Farmington Road from the property line heading west all the way to 75. And then, as we spoke of last time, the range of the TERS is more about how much money gets developed for the park in the future at council's discretion. Alex added in the concept plan again for you guys to see. This is the most recent one. This is the one that we discussed the last time we were all present here together. If you have questions, we can address that. I'm going to stick with the MMD, and then if we have time at the end, people can ask questions about the concept plan again, but since we've already had a meeting about that, we'll continue. So this is just a little bit of the things that we've already talked about. In this, well, and I'll get to the structure. So you can structure any special financing district, including a PID, you can structure in a number of ways. In this issuance, the MMD would be an elected board. And so as we begin the process, it'll be appointed. The city will have 1 member of the board, and then we will appoint the remaining members. Board members serve 4 years of staggered terms. Elections are held May of even years. And then when the board starts to turn over is once residents live within the boundaries of the community or of the MMD. In this situation, the MMD boundary is, well, I'll show it back to you. There's the MMD boundary right there. So as soon as residents' homes are up and they start buying and moving in, they'll be eligible because they own land within the boundaries to be a part of the board election. The MMDs are, it can feel a little bit like the Wild West. I just wanted to point out a couple of other items, one, that are different from MUDs, but then two, also, they just have quite a bit of oversight from the state legislature, both from, bond issuances approved by the Texas Attorney General. The TCEQ is heavily involved in managing and overseeing how districts operate. And then I threw this last part in here as well, because MUDs do have eminent domain power. MMDs do not have eminent domain power. And really, again, circling back to some of the things that the attorney, that your attorney spoke on, the MMD power is going to be whatever we collectively decide it will be in the development agreement. That's the board members. So my point with this was specifically to say our exit from this project will probably be, depending on velocity of sales, 7 to 9 years down the road. And so at that point, the board would be fully, and probably sooner, but the board would be fully made up of members of the community. So they would be essentially self-governing any aspects of the MMD. And we'll get to this in a moment as well, but depending on the structure, that would also mean that the board would control any future projects within the boundaries of the MMD. Generally, what that means is road maintenance. It means landscaping. Let's say the amenity center wall has a crack. It can almost function like a glorified HOA. And so instead of paying dues that are, whatever the dues are for an HOA, you can lower those dues because you're paying it through the issuance of debt and the tax paying it back. All MMD board meetings are also open to the public, similar to city council. So the board can't do anything in secret. So this is our specific structure. This is not exhaustive. It is a brief overview. We can certainly dive deeper into the details, open to all questions. I'll start off by saying that the MMD that we are proposing, and the reason that I have sought an MMD TERS, it's almost specifically a financial motivation. I mean, there's no... While yes, it is easier to, and many developers feel like it's safer to do an MMD versus a PID because you don't have to come back to council. That's absolutely true of how the development community views the issuance of that debt. Our purpose is really just that the MMD can reimburse us for more money, which makes the project work. If you recall, we initially came in and were looking at a PID TERS, and then as the concept plan changed and density was lowered and a variety of other things, the numbers stopped working. And so we started to pursue this route to try and make the project happen. And so the reason that's the reason we pursued the MMD. The reason we're pursuing an MMD with the ability to assess taxes is, again, very similar. It's all a financial decision. The assessment versus the tax, there's kind of a twofold benefit to the developer. The first one is the ability to tax means that you get reimbursed for more, okay? So if I were to do an assessment, it would have basically come out in the wash as the same as a PID, so it takes away the reason to do an MMD at all. So that's the first reason to do the tax, is that it allows you to reimburse more. The second reason is that the tax rate is a function of what the actual value that is created happens. So as an example, if home values end up skyrocketing and we do a really good job with the development to $600,000, one, you can lower the tax rate, but then two, you can also get reimbursed for more of the costs associated with the construction of infrastructure, roads, et cetera. So it is a very powerful reimbursement tool. And then later on down the road, depending on how this structure occurs, it's also a powerful reimbursement tool for the members of the community. Our current let's see how to phrase this. In our numbers, the tax rate that we have decided on that we think will keep us competitive in the market is that number up there, $54,6287 per $100 of assessed valuation. So it brings the total obligation of someone to buy a house based off of the city of Van Alstyne's tax rate, Grayson County, et cetera, to $2.72, you can see it right there. So that's what we're proposing. Within the development agreement, generally speaking, a lot of, when you do a district, if you can get it, you basically seek the maximum tax rate for the district that is allowed by the state, which I think is $1.20 per hundred. Now that is, you have to think of that more like a MUD where there is no city tax, and so that's. But I'm just giving you all the facts. We're not proposing that. We're not even proposing that you allow us to do that, and we can certainly talk about what kind of cap could be placed on it. The next section down, I'm just suggesting a cap of $3. There's a couple of reasons for that, but actually Lee made a comment a couple of meetings ago about just things going on in the state legislature for cities' ability to tax. And so I look at this as an opportunity for, let's say that for some reason the state lowers tax rates and property taxes and the city doesn't have enough money to keep up with roadways and things like that just because, the MMD can then step in and utilize its power to maintain, which we're already doing, but continue to maintain those types of things. Again, that number, it's a proposal open to discussion. We also, I've been talking initially in conversations with Alex, we are going to have the, I guess you would say, an end to debt issuance of 15 years. So from the beginning of development till 15 years, that's the only time frame. It's basically a cap on what the developer can get reimbursed for, but that would be the only time frame that the developer can get reimbursed for infrastructure costs. Again, I'm happy to still keep that in there. The only reason that I put this option in here of limiting, of not putting an end on it is because it is a powerful tool for future residents. And so, again, it basically functions like a HOA. And so it would give residents who are at this point self-governing the ability to lower the tax rate, but have something very minimal and still be able to basically issue debt. It would be like an HOA issuing debt in order to fund landscaping or improving exterior walls of the community, et cetera. So that's kind of council's decision on how they want to proceed with that, but I just wanted to give you your options because I do think it would be a powerful tool and for those members of that community. Yes, so you can have the option, and this is essentially my plan for the MMD to dissolve once the debt is paid off. If we end up saying that the residents are going to benefit from it, and council decides we're going to leave it in place, and then when they can lower the debt, the tax rate to pay off the debt, they do, then the MMD would not dissolve. The TERS would. So then it would just be basically, again, like an HOA fee on top of the normal taxes that the city, that you all already pay. But my plan is to dissolve, the MMD will dissolve once the debt pays off. There's no benefit to me for it to go on into perpetuity. Would love a 40-year term for the TERS. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't affect our numbers very much. So 35 is kind of what Robert's been running the numbers off of. I just put it in there because we haven't really gotten a chance to discuss it yet. So 35-year TERS term, and it would include, and it really, in order for my deal to work, it has to include both INS and MNO, but we've been having these discussions. And then the range is, call it 35 to 45% of city participation, meaning the city keeps the larger portion. And really that basically comes down to how much money gets given to the park fund is really what that range looks like. And there's money no matter what the range is, but that's really what the range looks like. And then furthermore, as we had discussed, the MMD is to perform street and utility maintenance for the course of the TERS, basically.
When the MMD runs out and dissolves, do the community at that point or that particular
We'll probably create an HOA board also. There'll be both, but it's a way to supplement and raise money either way because they're already going to be used to paying, paying tax, the tax rate, and the tax rate would be lowered significantly. You're talking about, yeah.
wondering, like, from a governance standpoint, boundaries of
The HOA also has the way the HOAs are created, they have a little bit different power than an MMD. As an example of like cutting your lawn and somebody having a bunch of, call it trash or junk in the front yard, the MMD is not going to have the ability to go assess fines and punishment for that. That's what the HOA is for.
And as I understand it, you would want to create that HOA on day one, because it's
Yes.
like virtually impossible to get everybody to sign up for an
Yes.
HOA 15
Yes,
years
yeah,
after
that's
they bought
created
it.
as part of our standard operating
Yeah,
procedure.
thank you.
This is going to sound rude, but I'm just going to warn you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I see all the benefits for you, but I don't see many benefits for the city.
Yes, I totally appreciate that. So the benefits to the city is this, and we've discussed it a couple of times. One, this property is currently in the ETJ. And so somebody, it's not gonna be me, I've been pretty clear about it. I'm trying to get this deal done. If it doesn't work for me, someone else is gonna come along. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna do a MUD, and they're gonna develop it in the county. And so there will be no control, there will be no taxes, there will be none of those benefits of having property annexed inside the city, both short-term, but then also long-term. Once the TERS is dissolved in 35 years, again, very long-term, all of that tax revenue now goes back to the city versus what the proposed split is. So that's one. The water revenue is the other one. So again, that's a benefit to me. There's no question there's a lot of benefits. So anything I say, I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm definitely getting something out of it. I want to do this deal. It's going to be a great deal for me. But we've kind of whittled it down. So just hear me there. I'm not suggesting I'm not getting something out of it. So the water currently is South Grayson Sud CCN. And so there is the ability, I think that there's twofold. The first part is that when we switch over the CCN, then the city gets all of the water revenue, which is, I believe it's like $43 million, but Robert can, over the course of the deal. So there's significant water revenue, but it also opens up more land that can be, that's control. Once the city has the CCN, it's a lot easier for you to get developers to come in, play ball essentially. But it also opens up that quadrant of the city to more annexed land, right? And as you extend your CCN, people are gonna want to come have conversations with the city, right? Then two, at least what I've been told, and part of why I've focused on it, is that traffic is an issue in the city, and that specifically Blythe Road in Farmington is a horrible road. And so while that absolutely benefits me to build 2 lanes of the road, there's no question that I want that done for my development. It'll also open up another avenue for people on the north side of town to get to 75 and hopefully remove some traffic. But it's also a road that's gonna have to get built eventually anyways, and this is basically a different way of financing it where we pay for it. The MMD.
But our city is going to pay for that entire road in effect by doing these special districts.
Well,
Like,
actually,
We're
what
giving
I
up
would,
tax dollars, I mean,
what I would tell you is no, other residents outside of the boundaries of the MMD are not paying for that road. Because the MMD is only, it is specific to the boundaries of that development. And
if we're giving up a portion of the tax,
I would say, what I would tell you
To
is that it
reimburse
only,
you,
what I would
and
tell
we're
you is it
paying
only
you.
affects the members of that specific community. So yes, those people move, the TERS is not over the whole city. So as an example, your taxes are not, your line item to City of Van Alstine is going to go entirely to the City of Van Alstine versus within our development, the 35 to 45%, whatever it ends up being, that line item portion of the City of Van Alstine would be going towards our development. So it's just specific to people that are living within the boundaries of that
I'm
community.
saying if it wasn't a TERS, it was a PID, the whole city would benefit from this development being annexed into the city. That's
I'm not
kinda
sure I
what I meant.
understand what the difference is.
What I'm saying, if they were just annexed into the city, all of that tax dollars for the city, everyone in the, now,
Well,
back to reimburse you and your people.
If you do a PID TERS, it's gonna be the exact same issue versus an MMD TERS is what I would tell you. If you just did a PID or if you just did an MMD, then in that situation, you're correct. If you just did a PID and annexed it into the city, then all of the city dollars would be going towards whatever the city wanted to spend it on. The TERS is a necessary tool for the PID and the MMD in order to increase and supplement. It's all just a big bucket of money at the end of the day. And so without the TERS, the money goes down. With the TERS, the money goes up, whether it's an MMD or whether it's a PID.
But I kind of understand what you're saying in the sense that these are new tax dollars. These are not tax dollars that are accounted for right now. It's only
Yeah.
dollars that come into the city. Whereas even if we got 100%, if it was annexed with a PID, or if it even just was annexed without any special districting or whatever, essentially, yes, we could take those dollars and then go build the road ourselves, and then everybody in the city would benefit, but we're getting it sooner. You're paying for it, even though the members of this community are paying for it.
That's right.
Not
Yes.
my tax dollars or anybody's tax dollars that are in here.
That's right. Yeah. So, 2 lanes of Blythe Road, again, it's up to you whether you think that's an actual benefit or not. And then also park dollars, is the other benefit, and control is what I would say. So water, annexation, it's, right now you get nothing from this property. Once it's annexed and developed for 35 years, you get whatever percentage of the TERS we get, or, you'll get, what is that, 65 to 55% of the tax dollars for 35 years, and then after that, you get 100% of the tax dollars. So annexation, water, Blythe, park, those would be the things I would say that the city gets.
This might be a question for the attorneys, but the boundaries of the MMD, if there was a property that butted up against it and it was another developer, let's say it wasn't,
So I wanted to actually address that. So what we would propose specifically for I think where you're going is 2 things. One, you can add non-contiguous property to an MMD after it's created. So that is allowed. 2, and I didn't put this in there, I wasn't trying to hide anything, I just forgot to. We would propose, hey, us specifically as the developer cannot annex any new land in without the approval of city council.
Well, so my question on that, and yes, that's where I was going, but my question is, can we make it inside the development agreement, or inside the MMD structure that nobody can, like, these are the boundaries of the MMD, only it cannot expand, whether
Yes.
it's, okay. Yeah, but that's a concern of mine, is you don't want an inner city of the city, even though it's still, we don't want it to be bigger than the city itself. And so going back to the point you were talking about the benefit of issuing bonds, I can see where you're going, like further and beyond for the residents of this
Yeah.
community.
I don't care either way, frankly. I
Yeah,
really
and
don't.
I see where you're going with that, but then you could get to a point where if you started adding to the MMD and they're issuing bonds in perpetuity to where they could be bigger and,
Yeah, so
I don't want to say better, but more attractive
Yeah.
of a city than our city that they're in, which is kind
In
of,
theory-
that's what I want to
in-
avoid.
In theory, that could absolutely happen. We would absolutely, and again, I apologize I didn't put this on here, but I would absolutely have something in there that says no land is to be annexed in the MMD without the approval of council. I mean, I'm just focused on this development right here.
There could be a scenario where wants to annex, otherwise was gonna stay out there.
Do a mud or
We
something.
might want to let those reasons. It was
I get what you're saying. So having that option to where,
yes or no.
That's right.
okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, as long as the language is very clear and strong around the
all this-
growth of the
Yeah, it'll-
particular
it'll be-
development
Yeah,
is a concern of mine, because
I think
Yeah.
it's a smart concern.
yeah, but I think it can mitigate a little bit too, that concern by the 15 years of the MMD dissolving, and then somebody wants to come in and annex and they create their own, we can do the same process again, rather than, if that's what it desires, then, rather than just adding on to this one and making this a powerhouse, a
Absolutely.
Chicago Bulls in the 90s.
2, 3, multiple MMDs, if you felt like that was smart for the city.
Yeah, I think each one would stand on its own merit rather than,
Yes.
okay.
In my view on that topic, it would be great to have the option, because who knows what the regulations of MMD are going to be in 15 years. And we might prefer the current method versus what it's going to look like in 15 years. So if we can annex something into an existing MMD, that might be preferable to setting up a new one where it's not as favorable to the city, because the legislature doesn't like us in 15 years. Yes, sir. Good point. So from an administrative point of view, it might be better to have one that's larger versus 5 smaller ones.
There's
Yeah.
definitely less administration with an MMD versus a PID as well, though.
Thank you. Okay.
To
David.
council's question, not only would that council permission be in the development agreement, it is also in the state law. 375043 says that a district provided by the water, subject to the approval of the municipality. So already under state law, it requires your.
So the MMD board can't just be like, hey,
Yeah.
we're
cor-
gonna
correct.
go
It can't-
annex this
can't-
land over here.
yeah, it
Everybody
can't
approve?
grow
Yay.
Without coming to you for that.
I appreciate it. I'd like to still see it in the development agreement,
it-
because state law changes.
Absolutely would be
And,
legislative changes.
This might be a question for Robert, but with the TERS taxation to both INS and MNO, it doesn't do anything for our tax, it doesn't raise our tax rate or anything, correct?
It won't raise your tax rate at all, and I was gonna come up with point. One of the benefits of bringing percentage of we've got 55% of buying down the INS, the valuation that is created out there should serve levy because you've got more tax. Even though you're still obligating something, obligating a large portion. That's another benefit. This won't mess.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And one more question while we're talking about boundaries. Can the TERS boundary be different than the MMD boundary? We almost approved a TERS a while back, and that did not include, in this case, Blythe Road. It was a different road. Can we include Blythe in the TERS even though it's not in the MMD? Okay. Because we definitely want to be able to spend the money from the MMD out on Blythe Road, even though it's not part of the MMD.
If that is a county road, would that require the county to participate in the TERS? We have another issue on this.
Well,
Well, yeah, I know they can, but if they don't want to, how does that particularly operate if you're trying to get Blythe Road all the way to 75?
Alex is going to enlighten us on where we stand on Blythe Road.
I don't know if enlightening is the right word, but there are some definite complexities with Blythe Road, given the fact that the north half is incorporated into the city of Howe, 2 foot of it is the city of Van Alstyne, and then I think most presumably the south portion of it's in Grayson County. And so I know Howe has a developer that's committed through a development agreement to construct 2 or 3 lanes on the north half. I think if we were to pursue this deal and we wanted to incorporate Blythe Road into the TERS and annex it from the county and have Mr. Hayden improve it to concrete, I don't want to speak for the county unequivocally, but I believe they'd be open to a discussion about letting us annex it and improve it and maintain it.
I'm sure they would, because they have not maintained it. So.
That's the truth.
Like, where'd it go?
That was one of my questions. The other question I had for you is all of the infrastructure also included in the MMD as far as maintenance, or like water would still be the city's responsibility?
Yes.
How does,
Within the boundaries of the MMD, water, sewer.
you have
and-
water leaks, you guys take care of it?
That's correct.
I think Mr. Ritter wanted to
Well, I was
comment.
just to the Blythe Road point, Alex's scenario would solve, I guess, some, I won't say long-running problems, but like the 2-foot strip annexation down the middle would not be allowed today, but I believe it happened in the 60s, and so that could be an impetus to basically solve this sort of, problem going forward. that road.
I would still wouldn't mind if we invited the county to join in on the TERS, but it's not clear that they would agree to do that. Okay. Anything else? Ready for more questions?
I'm ready for more questions.
Okay.
I am at your disposal.
I
Okay.
I have one more,
Yeah,
and it's
please.
probably for the attorney more than anything. So the money that would be dedicated to a park, but a non-park space inside the development, would, that have to be defined on how we would use those dollars, even if we weren't using them right away, but would we have to define those, at a specific time, a specific park, place, or can it be pretty broad?
You could, so this is the, sort of the open space or park dedication inside the development?
No.
This is funds coming in.
From the developer.
To be used elsewhere.
At a park space of council's discretion.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that would be defined through the DA term, the development agreement term.
Okay, so that's what I'm making sure. So we can,
You could certainly define those as being, yeah, as broad or as discretionary as council's wishes.
sounds good. That's all I got.
Thank you. Anyone else? Are we looking for action here tonight? Is this strictly a presentation?
Well, I guess I would suggest or hope for that, I mean, my initial target was to target a development agreement to be voted on in June, on the June council meeting. I don't know how aggressive that is, David. But so if we can do that based on the term sheet, then that'd be great, or we can put the term sheet before to be voted on. I don't believe the term sheet's binding in the future, and I'm not talking about at this meeting, I'm talking about at an official council meeting, but.
Yeah, as posted, this one is to receive presentations from Hayden Family Capital, basically discuss. So no action or vote would be taken tonight, but
Yes, sir.
certainly the anticipation of putting it on a future.
Yeah, so that would be my hope, is to say, hey, David, we can start to draw up a development agreement to be looked at and possibly approved by council at the June meeting. Not really an actionable event necessarily, just a plan to move forward.
Okay, so yeah, anybody want to provide feedback at this time? I'll just say I appreciate your being here tonight and helping to educate us in the MMD fine points. And I have no objection from what I've learned with moving forward at this point. I think, like many things, the details will determine the council's appetite to proceed. But as far as the finance go, our experts have weighed in, and I think it's another option similar to PID TERS that we've approved. It may be more advantageous to you and to us.
I tend to agree. I guess the other thing that I didn't say, just to touch on it as well, that we would also have in the development agreement that the MMD doesn't have the ability to assess or to utilize impact fees, or the only source of reimbursement revenue we're looking for from the MMD is the ability to issue bonds that are paid back via the tax rate. So we're not trying to double dip. In my mind, that's double dipping. We're not trying to do assessments and also do impact fees and all that. The impact fees for this development would all go towards the city. Water, sewer, roadway impact fees, that's all gonna be filling the city's coffers, if you will. I think in the term sheet I have asked for, it's really what I would say, the MMD is certainly an ask, but I've asked for water and sewer impact fees equal to the amount of infrastructure we're bringing up to actually service the development. We are spending the money to bring the sewer and water up, and then from its current location to serve the development, so.
So in other words, you'd want to be reimbursed for that, or just
Yeah,
have your
some
impact
credits.
fees,
They'd be
credits is
yeah.
a better
Yeah,
phrase.
yeah.
Yep, thanks.
Credits is a better phrase. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. No reason to go into executive session, to my knowledge, so we'll skip over item 3. And having concluded all business before us tonight, looking both directions, I believe that is the case, I will declare the meeting to be adjourned at 5:31.